Beginning with the Land Ordinance of 1785, Congress viewed the public lands as a source of revenue. The public lands were surveyed and then offered at public auction to the highest bidder. There was no limitation to the amount an individual could buy. At first, sales were handled by the Treasury Department, but in 1812, Congress created the General Land Office to handle the administration and sale of the public lands. The system favored moneyed interests and speculators. Much of the public land east of the Mississippi was alienated in large blocks, leaving only scattered tracts of public lands unsold.
The nation lacked financial means in the early years to help the states. However, the country had an abundance of land, and so Congress, beginning in 1803 with Ohio, began to grant lands to the states for the public schools and internal improvements. Beginning with Ohio, the United States began to give Section 16 to the states. Later, with other states like Colorado, they gave Sections 16 and 36, and then later with New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, the federal government gave 4 sections of land to the states.
In 1862, to further aid the development of the states, lands were granted for universities, and thus the land-grant colleges came into being. Grants also were extended for internal improvements, such as roads and canals.
Some of the more significant legislative grants that impacted the public domain were those made directly to the railroads. Beginning in 1850 with the Illinois Central and ending in 1871, Congress gave away millions of acres of public lands to finance the railroads. The grants were often enormous. The Northern Pacific Railway Company, for instance, received the odd-numbered sections within 40 miles on either side of its tracks. The railroad grants are primarily responsible for the checkerboard land pattern in parts of the West. The purpose of these generous grants? Incentives for development of the West.
While the government was selling large blocks of land to business interests, granting lands to the states and railroad corporations, there was also a concern for the small farmer. The settlement laws for the small farmer were among the important determinants of the land pattern that the Bureau of Land Management administers today. Among the first laws was the Pre-Emption Act of 1841. It provided pioneers 160 acres at $1.25 an acre. The 1862 Homestead Act gave 160 free acres to settlers willing to cultivate and reside on their claims for 5 years. The principles of the preemption and homestead laws were best suited to the country east of the 100th meridian, that magical line that separates the arid west from the more humid east. To encourage farming west of the 100th meridian, Congress enacted other laws. In 1873 came the Timber Culture Act that hoped to bring rain to the arid west through the planting of trees. The law initially provided 160 acres to those willing to plant 40 acres of trees on barren land and maintain them for 10 years. Then came the Desert Land Act of 1877. As originally enacted, it granted 640 acres, an entire section, to individuals willing to conquer the arid west by means of irrigation. But still the farmer's frontier stalled when it reached the doorstep of the great American desert.